Hi guys, Louise here from Louise Ella Nutrition. Hello, hello. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far and a last week before holidays, or if you're staying on till just before the Christmas period, you've got like another week to go, not long now. So this is the third video of the Healthy Christmas Habits series. And this video is about 5 Christmas foods to be aware of this festive season. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how too much sugar causes you harm. We're going to talk about the sugar recommendations, and then I'm going to share with you 5 foods to be aware of, including the ingredients list. We'll talk about fat and sugar content and a little bit about preservatives as well. So I'll just make sure I've got my little preservative book so I can go through that with you. Let's talk about how too much sugar can cause you harm. So we know that when we have too much sugar, it just makes us feel yuck. And it's really important to know why this may be causing you this way, and also all the other signs and symptoms and things like that. So let's talk about sugar spiking your blood glucose levels. So when you have a lot of sugar, it goes into your blood, causes blood glucose, which is blood glucose, pretty much sugary blood. And then you have insulin that comes to your rescue. It's like da, 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 and it mops up all the sugar and puts it in places that we don't like to have it placed, unfortunately, for use for later on. But what happens is that when we keep eating too much sugar over and over and over, the insulin receptors go, oh, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore. And it then, the insulin receptors are not as receptive anymore, and then we end up having an insulin issue, which is type 2 diabetes. So, that's what happens when we eat too much sugar on a regular basis. It can cause weight gain, the risk of heart disease and cancers. It's linked to acne. It can cause depression, which we know when we've had too much sugar, we feel flat. It increases the aging process. It affects your mood. So we all know, especially us ladies, we can get really ratty sometimes when we've had too much sugar. And it can cause you to feel so tired and fatigued and just have no energy whatsoever. So it's really important to really watch how much sugar, especially refined sugar, how much we're having that of in our diet. So in terms of recommendations, it's recommended that 6 teaspoons a day of sugar for women and 9 teaspoons for men. So a small child would be about 3 teaspoons. And we all know, well, not all of us, but a lot of children eat way more than that. Issues and teeth issues too. So always off to the dentist, having fillings and all of that because of the sugar. So 6 teaspoons may not seem like a lot, and it really isn't, and it can be found everywhere. So there's a lot of foods that have sugar in it, which is why I wanted to share with you the 5 Christmas foods to be aware of, because they have a very high sugar content. And it's just being aware of, and it's not to deter you from eating it at all, because sometimes we go to these Christmas events and, some of the foods I'm going to talk about is pudding. Then we have pavlova, and we have all these yummy foods that we like to have. And it's not about not having it at all, because it's Christmas, and we're, it's an indulgent time, but it's just not having too much where we end up overdoing it. So I find that when you're aware of how much sugar content is in things, we're a little bit more mindful of how much we eat of that. So on that note, let's get started. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, and ta-da, Christmas pudding, number 1. Christmas pudding is it's called Christmas pudding because we have it at Christmas time. And a lot of the time we don't just have Christmas pudding on its own, we have it with custard. Sometimes we have it with ice cream. So we're just talking about Christmas pudding on its own. And you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but it says this particular pudding is 900 grams. So it's a normal size of a pudding. So when we look at, I'll just quickly go through the Healthy Star rating as well. So I'm not really a big fan of the healthy star rating because 2.5 out of 5 means it's like 50% healthy. And when you look at it from a layperson, in a sense, like I look at it and go, 50% healthy? No. So, yeah, and it's like it says no artificial colors or flavors. So, I mean, I get the concept of the healthy star rating, and I know that those who created it thought it was a really great idea, and it gives you an understanding. Like if it's 1 out of 5, you know it's probably really healthy. But saying 50% healthy, I'm not sure. So I get confused with the healthy star rating, as I'm sure you do as well. And unfortunately, we'll look at it and we think, oh, well, it's not that bad for us. And then we're going to look at the sugar content and you'll be like, what? So let's get into that. So so looking at this, so you can see it's made in New Zealand. So at least it's been reasonably local, even though it's still overseas, but it's New Zealand. You can see here that, okay, so let's look at the serving size. Serving size is 100 grams. It's 700 gram pudding. So half of that and then half again. So yeah, half of that would be 350. Then half of that again is 175. So, and then again, so it's about 1/8 of a slice of that pudding, right? So you think, oh yeah, that's just a normal slice that you would have, and then you would have your ice cream with it or whatever you have with it. But that slice alone is 40.5 grams of sugar. So a teaspoon of sugar is 4.2 grams. So 10 times 4 is 40. So that's a lot of sugar. That's 10 teaspoons of sugar just in that one little slice. And if our recommendations for women is 6 teaspoons, that's way over just from one little slice, not to mention what else you've eaten throughout the day. So it's really quite a lot. And you can see the saturated fat content, 1.3 grams. It's, it's not the best, but it's okay. And then you look at the ingredients and, you think, oh my gosh, like if I made this from scratch, probably wouldn't have that many ingredients in there. So, and when we're talking about preservatives, I always refer to my additives alert book, which is from Julie Eady. And this book's pretty old. I've had it for a while. Excuse me. But in terms of like preservative 202, it talks about 202, which is potassium sorbate. It talks about the adverse reactions are things like possible liver damage, behavioural problems linked to asthma, and avoid if you've got kidney or heart problems. So yeah, they're not really good preservatives. Preservatives in general, as like she says, it's not as bad as colours, because colours can be really bad for you, but they have a delayed onset. And so this has also got preservative 224 in it. So 224 is potassium metabisulfite. I don't know if I've said that right, but it's very long. And it was saying asthmatics should avoid this. Causes gastric irritation, nausea, nettle rash, swelling, and behavioural problems. So both of them talk about behavioural problems. So a little slice is fine, but if you had this all the time, and also remember, a lot of our foods, a lot of the packet foods, is cheeses and anything that needs preserving has 202 in it. So when you're eating a lot of preserved foods and you're having a lot of 202, this is when it can become a problem. So so that's this one. The next one is mince pies. So some people like mince pies, some don't. I don't mind a mince pie every so often. I prefer the bakery ones though. At least I know they've been made more like a little bit better from scratch, not in a packet. And you can see 1.5 healthy star rating, which you would assume probably should be 0. But so if we look at, so you think of a little pie, this tiny little mince pie, you think, oh yeah, 1 or 2, it's fine. It's not. Like, let's look at the sugar content. So one serve is about 60 grams, 59 grams on their little serving size measurement there. And you can see that the sugar is 20 grams of sugar. So that is 5 teaspoons of sugar per little tiny pie. And you think, oh, but it's got fruit in it. Still sugar. So yeah, that it's quite a lot. And you can even see the saturated fat. So the previous pudding was around the 1.7 grams, I think it was. And this one is twice that for a smaller amount. So yeah, you just think, oh my God, 4.2 grams, that's a lot in one pie. And imagine if you had two of them. You know, it's not as bad as, you know, like a McDonald's burger or something like that, which is full of God knows what. But it's still a lot of saturated fat when you're thinking about what else you might be eating that day. And you can see the ingredients, like look at all of these things. Like there's, where is it? There's preservatives in here. I can see it. Yeah, preservative 202. So yeah, and there's a lot of ingredients where, I mean, sometimes it's not feasible to make things from scratch, but if you're going to do mince pies, try and maybe get ones from the bakery, if possible, rather than buying it from the box at Woolworths. This is where I went. I went to Woolworths to have a look at these photos. Well, take photos of the food, because I'm like, I can't buy this stuff. So yeah, but anyway, so you can see there's a lot of ingredients, there's a lot of sugar and a lot of saturated fat in there. Now we look at pavlova, and you're like, no, pavlovas are my favorite. Put a comment in, please comment in the comments below if you are a big fan of pavlova. I'm sure there is quite a few of you out there. It'll make you feel better to know that you're not the only one. I love pavlova too. We grew up on pavlova. It's like a Christmas tradition, especially when you have the fresh whipped cream and the fruit all on there as well. So when we're looking at the Healthy Star rating, we're not looking at the cream and the sugar from the fruit. And I mean, it's natural fruit. It's got vitamins and minerals and things in there, but there's still a certain amount of sugar, natural sugar though, rather than harmful sugar, which would be in the actual pavlova itself. So as you can see, it makes up 10 serves. It's 500 grams this is the big pavlova, you know, those lovely big ones, and then you just add all the stuff on top. If you're able to make pavlova, it's probably better, because when you look at the ingredients here, you know, you're talking, I mean, pavlova, sugar, egg white, that's about it. And then in here, you've got things like preservative, 202 again, vegetable gum, natural flavors, acidity regulator. Like, seriously, why would you need that? Foaming agent, really? So it's interesting. So, you know, there's all these extra things that we would only use a couple of ingredients to make pavlova, but those that are making it in bulk, and so it can be preserved and bought in bulk, have all these extra ingredients in it. So, and how tree nuts might be present in there, I don't know, because there's no nuts in pavlova, but it's probably on the same conveyor belt type thing. So they put that in there to be safe. So as you can see, like a serving size is 50 grams. So that would be about 1/10 of that big pavlova. So if you go half, then half, that's 4, and then half and half again, that's 8. So it's a bit smaller than 1/8. And you can see the sugar content is 34.3 grams. So let's work this out. If you're not a calculator person, you're like, oh my God, how boring, but it's really interesting. So sugar content is 30, I just want to write, so I've got a calculator. So 34.3 divided by 4.2, which is how many grams are in a teaspoon, equals, look at that, 8 teaspoons, just over 8 teaspoons of sugar in one small little piece of pavlova. How sad. It's really not good. And saturated fat, it's not much saturated fat because there isn't fat in there. And that's another thing. Sometimes we see these things, they're like, oh, it's fat free or it's low fat. It's because there's no fat in there. It's like saying marshmallows are fat free. There's no fat in there. It's just sugar. So don't be convinced by their little marketing things that they do. Yeah, so it's got a lot of sugar in it, and so it's probably a little bit, you know, and remember, you'll be having cream, which has got saturated, you know, the fat in there, and then you've got all the other stuff on top. Plus, you might even have a little slither of the pudding with it as well, and ice cream, and you're like, oh my God, it's just a disaster. But that's why we fall asleep after Christmas, after having a big meal. And that's why I was recommending, it's really important to wait a little while after you've had a big Christmas lunch and then have sweets, just to give your body a break, because the poor body system, you could just imagine if it was a cartoon character, it would be exhausted. So yeah, so that's that. All right, so I wanted to share this one because it says it's gluten free. Whether or not it's okay for celiac, I'm probably isn't, but it's free from gluten. And yeah, it probably, I was going to say it probably doesn't have any gluten in there. It's probably why it's free. But anyway, whatever. So this has got 4 packs, so 4 little pieces of cake. So you can see, like, it's not very big. They'd only be like tiny little pieces. And healthy star rating of 2, giving you the impression that, oh, you know, must be kind of okay. No, not. It's probably the icing that tips it over the edge. But you can see, like, in terms of sugar, one little tiny thing has 23 grams, which is nearly just over 4, maybe 5 teaspoons of sugar per one little one, which is nearly your daily intake of sugar. Doesn't have a lot of saturated fat in there, but it has like 20 or 30 ingredients. So it's not really the best product to be having. And, you know, sometimes when we're at Christmas and, you know, there's different foods and stuff on the table for you to nibble on, and it's these sort of foods that tip you over the edge when it comes to the sugar. All right, so Ferrero Rochers. Now you're probably going, no, not Ferreros. I love Ferreros. I know there's a few of my friends that love Ferreros, and my mum, she will always put Ferreros in a stocking, you know, as a sort of like a stocking type filler. She's always giving out Ferreros, you know, because it's like a fancy thing, you know. And yeah, you think, oh yes, it's Ferreros, you know, it's all good. And you think, oh no, it's not. So it's more just being aware of how much sugar. So this particular pack, you know, 1 serving size is 1 Ferrero. And you can see that for something so tiny has 1.8 grams of saturated fat, which is a lot. It's they're not made in Australia either. They're made in Italy, so they've travelled a long way. And yeah, the sugar is 5 grams, so it's like just over 1 teaspoon of sugar. So yeah, I know when we have Ferreros, you know, you'll end up having 3 or 4, and then you're just adding like it's like 1 teaspoon of sugar. And if you have 6, that's your daily intake. So, and there's a lot of saturated fat too, which doesn't do us any good for our high density lipoproteins, you know, so our low density lipoproteins. So you know, which is your HDL and your LDL. So HDLs are good fats and the LDLs are bad fats, which can cause issues in your body. So yeah, so that's them. So I just wanted to share with you that this is not to, I'm going to just try, oops, my little notes there. All right, so this video, it's more to share with you some foods that we have at Christmas, but, you know, it's about not having too many of them. So if you're sitting there and there's all these sweets on the table and you're like, oh, I'll have a bit of pavlova, and I'll have a bit of ice cream, and oh, I might have some pudding, and, you know, drizzle it with all this, you know, custard. And it's when you have like that big bowl, it's probably about 20 or 30 teaspoons of sugar. And that's why you feel a bit yucky after Christmas and really tired, and, you know, you get a bit constipated and you just like, oh, I feel yuck, and you start getting pimples and you're like, Christmas, overdone it again. And that can be the reason, and also we're overstuffing ourselves. So our poor body is under immense pressure by having too much food in our belly. And it can cause all sorts of issues, which I know we don't want to hear about because it's Christmas time and you're like, I don't care, just let me have Christmas. So this is more just to help you be aware of how much sugar is in those foods. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any comments or anything like that, or if you like this video, please like the video or like the post, and please leave a comment if you have anything to share. I love hearing from you and I love getting involved in all the conversation, you know. And if you're someone that's like, no, I don't agree, put the comments in there. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, and I'll speak to you before Christmas. But if you don't see my video because you're probably out, having lots of Christmas fun, have a very Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year. And yeah, I've got some interesting things planned in the new year. But I also have a Christmas present for you, which I'll give to you on Christmas Eve, because there's nothing better than having a little present to open on Christmas Eve. And it's downloadable. It's something fun, motivating, and empowering. And I hope you really enjoy it. I love to design, so that's a little bit of a tip, what it might be. So yeah, I hope you enjoy that. Cool. All right. Well, have a good week. Enjoy this week leading up to the Christmas period. And yeah, I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Okay. See ya. Bye.